see their lives throughout their 15 years of marriage. And then at the very end, when they thought that they were going to announce divorce for the kids, she changed her mind.
Awesome. All right, Rox, what about you? What movie always chokes you up?
Well, I'm a big weenie these days, and just about anything that like punches my sensitivity feeling, since I have a hormone-producing tumor that likes to make me feel like I'm pregnant. So yeah, literally almost anything. But especially movies like My Sister's Keeper, The Green Mile, those were even The Notebook, stuff like that, where you're doing something and sacrificing for someone you love so much that you'll even give your own life. Because I think that's kind of like maybe a military thing. I'd happily sacrifice my life for the country, and did. But like, I guess that kind of like emotional pull down deep where you do that for someone else because you love them so much, just like all of the military loves our country and our people in it. Even the shitty one.
I would have absolutely put money that one of you three would have mentioned The Notebook. It's the one chick flick that I think is absolutely worth watching.
Wow.
I know.
Sometimes my mind's a little, fuzzy, and, maybe one day somebody's going to have to read to me. And I think that's true love right there, where you, like, never give up on somebody, no matter what.
I get it. All right, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the show. It is 1 minute past high noon. This is The Reckoning. It is show number 340 on the 24th of August, 2026. Now, there are many things I could talk about today. My opponent in the last election is starting a bipartisan committee. I think being bipartisan in today's day and age is a little bit about being bisexual. You're still gay. So why didn't he just come out and admit that he's a Democrat? I could also talk about the fact that the Marion County chairman is a complete and total moron, a betrayer of both the Republican Party as well as his faith, but I want to be happy today. So today I'm going to talk about something that I love. Texas high school football returns this Thursday. My wife of 1 year, who is in the audience, love you, honey, and I will go and watch, and she puts up with this in me, my beloved South Lake Carroll Dragons play Jenks High School from Oklahoma. Now, these are two high school powerhouses, so it should be a really great game. There's an added bonus for me. They play it this year at the Cotton Bowl, a stadium I've attended multiple times since I was a young boy. I think my first game there was when I was either 5 or 6. Now, to me, high school football epitomizes the very best of Texas. You have communities organizing around their team, honestly, setting up their entire school structure around their team. And of course, I love football as it is a perfect training laboratory for war. I love the pomp and ceremony of the game. I love the crowd standing up for the school's anthems and then the national anthems. I love the players running through the helmet, the banner, and the drill teams. To be honest, I could do without the marching bands, but I tolerate it as it is a break to go get a bite to eat. For me, usually I've eaten dinner already, and so it's just a snack of some type. But I would tell you that the South Lake Dragons at one point actually sold sushi in their stadium. A little bit of a rich school. Now, to me, high school football is all about discipline. It's convincing 11 young men to do exactly what they're supposed to do. And that's why I think it's a perfect metaphor for war. All right. I am going to simply say this about high school football. I'm very glad that the long drought is over. And so I will close with these 3 things to say. First of all, on Friday night, absolutely go Dragons. Saturday night, it's hook 'em horns. And on Sunday, I will continue my abusive relationship with the Dallas Cowboys. I love them and they hate me. So welcome back, football. My world is much, much better with you in it. All right, let's talk about the first topic today. Now, again, hat tip data Republican right off the bat. She researched it. She wrote it. I'm just talking about it. All right, so what she did is she researched what I think was a vast conspiracy on the left, and I got to be honest with you, I hope she stays safe. They've already silenced Charlie Kirk, and I believe that they will silence her either the same way they did Charlie or by putting her in prison the way they did me when the Democrats come to power again. So I've got the link, and Hilario, if you could post it on X, or Roxy on X or Facebook, to her work. Now, we all kind of talked about it when it came out, but there were the 6 representatives, a couple of senators as well, the seditious 6, that came out of, quote, nowhere in 2025. telling military members that it's okay to disobey the commander-in-chief. This didn't come out of nowhere. It actually developed over a period of about 8 years. Academics, non-governmental organizations, and activists decided that they needed to rewrite the relationship between the military and the executive branch. Again, the military is really the last bastion, all right, the last hope. And here's what I mean by that. Let's say that Newscomb gets out of control again, all right, and he starts just basically violating the Constitution, which he's already doing. And President Trump says, I'm going to make you comply with the Constitution, which I wish he would do, and says, I'm therefore declaring California to be in a state of insurrection. The president can deploy the military and use any force necessary to restore constitutional law and order to an area declared to be in a state of insurrection. Remember, the Insurrection Act came about when those crazy radicals in Congress, I believe right before 1800, gave George Washington, that fire-breathing radical, kind of like Orange Man Bad, I guess Apple Tree Man Bad, the power to do this. So they have got to undermine the military's relationship with the Constitution. So that's what they're trying to do now. Now, who is the architect of this? All right, there is a lady named Rosa Brooks. And on January the 30th of 2017, 10 days into the Trump presidency, the first one, she published a piece in Foreign Policy that laid out 4 ways to remove a sitting president before his term ended. Impeachment, which they tried. The 25th Amendment, which they would have loved to have tried. Resignation under pressure, which there's no way Trump's going to do that, but they did get Nixon out that way, or a military coup. Now, that's seemingly unthinkable to me without a couple of things being included in the mix, which is what she's trying to do. So she imagined a moment where senior officers would look at a lawful commander-in-chief and refuse to follow his orders. All right. She said, and I quote, "The fourth possibility is one that until recently I would have said was unthinkable in the United States of America. A military coup, or at least a refusal by military leaders to obey certain orders." Do you remember when Nancy Pelosi told General Milley to intervene and not to follow the orders from President Trump? Gee, I wonder where that came from. Now, Rosa Brooks, saying her name again so it starts being burned into our conscious like Mark Elias. Rosa Brooks had been a counselor to the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, a political appointee inside the Pentagon from 2009 to 2011 under Imam Barack Hussein Obama. All right. And before the Pentagon, she was special counsel to the president at George Soros's Open Society Institute. After that, she went to Georgetown Law, where she still holds a professorship and participates in the university's national security programming. And I do mean programming in that she's programming her students to be anti-American, almost certainly. All right. Now, 1 year after her article ran, a new organization was quietly incorporated. That organization is called National Security Action. Its real name, if it was named appropriately, should be Destabilizing the United States Action. Now, it was co-chaired by Obama Deputy National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes and future Biden National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, and was funded largely by Alex Soros. Okay, so Rosa Brooks joined its advisory council. In 2018, all right, that's when she joined. The organization started assembling personnel that would eventually staff Biden's national security positions. Prior to joining, she sat on the board of the Open Society Foundation's U.S. programs, the grant-making entity upstream of the money that funded it. So she was a senior fellow at New America, which itself takes $1 million from Open Society, running its future war program. And she also ran the intellectual shop studying the civil military questions her network would later propose to litigate. Now, here's where it got really interesting for me, because there is a thing called the Transition Integrity Project. That was the Democratic blueprint to actually steal the 2020 election. So this lady, Rosa Brooks, co-founded the Transition Integrity Project in June of 2020. TIP, Transition Integrity Project, ran a set of war games modeling how a contested 2020 election might unfold, including scenarios turning on whether institutions up to and including the military would recognize the outcome. Now, it operated under the umbrella of Protect Democracy, which had taken $650,000 from Open Society. John Podesta also participated, all right, who was in the Obama administration. So did roughly 100 other senior figures, only 10 of whose names are public. The rest have never been disclosed. So let me get this straight. We had a Soros-funded group of former government officials conspiring to overthrow the will of the American people via the Transition Integrity Project. Now, you would think that we would have somebody reporting on that, right? Here again, I say, and I am not wrong, I am absolutely right on this, and I will go to my deathbed 100% believing it. The FBI is a Democrat apparatus. It is not a legitimate law enforcement organization, or we would know the names of these people. This was the planning wing for the coup that occurred in 2020, and the FBI did nothing. The fact that Kash Patel, the man that wrote Government Gangsters, has done nothing about the Transition Integrity Project tells you everything you need to know about the Democratic terrorist leanings of the FBI. They are their organization, not ours. And if it is not disbanded, it will be the organization that rounds up conservatives in the next Democratic presidency. Now, by 2024, allegations that Georgetown University was undermining electoral choices had intensified. Mary McCord, the former acting assistant attorney general for national security, joined the National Security Action or there, and she spent 2020 building a model against unlawful armed force. In other words, trying to stop the military from doing what the commander-in-chief tells it to do. She distributed fact sheets to all 50 states and to attorneys general and police chiefs. In other words, spreading her sedition all over. And this is what she said in a November 2020 Brookings panel. I manned the voter intimidation helpline throughout the day. Voter intimidation helpline. Okay. Now, she also said, we're starting to put together a team to think through the most damaging types of things that he might do, he being President Trump, so that we're ready to bring lawsuits if we have to. The Republicans recognized this threat, and Representative Pete Sessions from Fort Worth, Texas, put the effort on the congressional record, alleging a coordinated campaign to suppress Article 2 of the United States Constitution and to deal with the provisions inside of it defining presidential control of the military. Direct hostile action against the Constitution of the United States. Now, in June of 2025, the Democracy Defenders Fund, love these names, love them, all right, with the assistance of Mary McCord of ICAP, published President Trump's deployment of the National Guard is unlawful and unprecedented, arguing that his move to federalize the National Guard under 10 U.S.C. 12406 without invoking the Insurrection Act was exactly that. Not content to do just that, all right? Our villain in the story, Rosa Brooks, published in Daedalus, the Journal of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, that traditional civil military framework is inadequate against authoritarian threats. Okay, every time the Democrats say something, you need to just immediately flip it because they are lying through their teeth and doing what they say they're not doing or doing what they're accusing us of doing. The civil military framework of the Constitution is the only real bulwark you have against authoritarian threats. Because I swear an oath to the Constitution, not the commander-in-chief, and they're trying to undermine that. Now, McCord published When Deference is No Longer Due in Just Security, a direct argument against judicial deference to a president's military determination. So again, trying to use the third branch of government to undermine the executive branch. All of this led up to the Seditious Six video, all right, where they basically said, disobey the orders. In the summer of 2025, About Face, a veterans organization, launched its Right to Refuse campaign. In September and October of 2025, Win Without War put out not what you signed up for billboards at military bases telling troops to question their orders. On June 17th, all right, the National Lawyers Guild Military Law Task Force published and then updated 1 week before the video its Refusing Illegal Orders Frequently Asked Questions for Service Members. Then in November, 6 Democratic lawmakers released the video. Now, why would these 6 people that have sworn to uphold and defend the Constitution act to undermine it? 2 truths. First of all, they are communists. Second, George Soros's money. They wanted his money. Now, George Soros's personal wealth flows into what is called the Fund for Policy Reform, a 501c4 with roughly $841 million in assets. The fund sends hundreds of millions annually to Open Society, okay, and that entity is the documented primary funder of national security action. A majority of everything that the organization has ever raised has come from the Open Society Policy Center. Now, Data Republican, who I would not want to be on her bad side because I think she could find just about everything I ever did as a child on upwards, all right, searched national security action across 1,600 plus transcripts from Brookings, Carnegie, CSIS, the Council of Foreign Relations, Heritage, and dozens of other institutions, and the organization appeared 0 times. That, my good friends, is called tradecraft. Now, its website currently lists no staff, no board, no advisory council, no annual report, and no financial disclosures. So the organization, which placed dozens of people in the Biden administration, barely exists in the public record, and yet they, among other Soros-backed institutions, were at the center of an 8-year campaign to seditiously conspire against the United States Constitution and the legitimate commander-in-chief. Okay, it is against the UCMJ for Roxy or I to defy lawful orders or to encourage disobeying those orders. It is sedition to directly undermine the Constitution, yet they will not be charged with it. Okay, why do I think they will never be convicted of it? Because I don't know that there's enough there from a force perspective. But here's what I do know. There is enough there to begin the lawfare which would destroy their lives. The Democrats made this exact calculation in 2021, and they destroyed the lives of 1,500 Americans for protesting their theft of the election. They imprisoned 667 Americans, and as a result of the Democratic lawfare, 5 Americans killed themselves. The Democrats are willing to use lawfare to wield power and make the change they want to see happen. The Republicans are not. There is no reason that Alexander Soros and his father is walking free. There is no reason that Mayorkas, Elias, and now this Rosa Brooks are walking free. They are sworn enemies of the United States, and they need to be added to the list of domestic enemies caught and prosecuted. But this is not going to happen. Why is it not going to happen? Because of his staffing choices. Again, we have a former Democrat for Attorney General, and the DOJ is a captured Democrat institution. I don't know why we tolerate this outright sedition, but I hope what I've done is just lay it out for you that this campaign did not materialize overnight, that they are continuing to continuing to work to undermine the relationship between the military and the executive branch, and they are directly trying to overthrow the Constitution of the United States, in my mind. All right, Rox, I just got your message, so I won't start with you. I'll start with Dr. A. What are your thoughts on this?
Sir, I love Data Republicans' work, and like you, I pray she stays safe. I am flustered that we have yet to see the accountability that we all desperately want and need to see if there's going to be change. But I also recognize, and I know nobody wants to hear it, but the justice system moves slowly. So I know part of the issue was getting out some of the judges that we couldn't count on, and they've been working on that. So I don't know. I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Okay, but again, you can engage in lawfare. Okay, 4 days after January the 6th, I was arrested. 4 days. The justice system can move quick when it wants to. It just doesn't want to because we have a Democrat in charge and because the DOJ is a captured Democrat institution. And all this business of just waiting for Trump to get the right judges, I bought that a year ago. It ain't happening. They are going to run the clock out on him, period. As a matter of fact, it's almost gone. We have less than 90 days, I think, till the next election. As soon as the midterms are over, and so I guess it was January 3rd, I think, is when the new Congress is seated. Probably January the 4th, he's impeached. It's over. You're right. He did not give us the accountability, and that's why his numbers are tanking. You know what's funny is I can almost see Susan Wiles up there saying, well, if you just move to the middle, if you get a little bit more Bush-like, they'll love you. No, we wanted him to come in and clean up. I am your retribution. He said that, and he's done nothing on that. All right, Southern, coming to you, and then Rox. Sorry, Rox. Skip the order.
You know, there's only one actual sentence for this, so you know how I feel about it. Let's just get it done.
But again, do you have any hope that they're going to get it done?
Oh, no. But I'm trying to be hopeful right now. I'm trying to be the hopeful one here.
Yes, ma'am. I get it. And again, that's why I talked about football, because football makes me hopeful. All right, go ahead, Rox.
Again, audience, if you do not know, and if you want to add to this topic, just request up, and as long as you don't look like a troll bot or anything like that, you'll come up. We are a live show. My thoughts are kind of funny because we just had a DSA candidate win down in Florida, and I almost think it's a joke because, I think a lot of Republicans registered as a Democrat to elect her to make sure Ashley Moody gets elected, in a landslide. However, it's still funny because some of the things you said about being arrested for protesting, she literally has video of her doing the same thing, them saying you cannot occupy the official house of the governor, and they don't arrest her. So the whole Democratic Party is a walking oxymoron, in my opinion. And yeah, they're funded, and literally the same people that fund terrorists are funding them. It is insanity. These are communists. They have been taken over. Now, finally, some of them are starting to have balls and calling that crap out. I'm sorry, I did not say the F word. But I controlled myself. And I'm just saying, some of them are really, really speaking up about it. And I am congratulating them, even if I don't like them or their opinion. But they're like, okay, these people are whack. It's the people who keep folding. And then they're like, we're going to accept them into the party because we're a big tent party. Whatever. You want the communists? No, they're a separate party. I think you've lost your minds or you're being paid out and you're making it so clear that you get dirty, dirty money from the Soros and other people that are literally funding this because they want to take over the world for globalism. They want to depopulate the earth. All of it's under the same agenda and Marxist playbook. All of it. And these people are actual terrorists. Worshipping, they're sad when people in terror, they're like, oh no, my community doesn't like it. But no, I don't hate Jews all of a sudden now that I won the nomination, that other guy, the other terrorist up there. Yeah. Okay. These people are nuts. You do not celebrate terrorism in this country. Even domestic terrorists are terrorists to us. We raise our hand against foreign and domestic terrorism.
Agree. They're absolutely domestic terrorists, and yet they get away with it. I mean, I get, okay, and again, remember, I've hunted people who are, third in line in the logistics chain. All right. I know what we were searching for over in Afghanistan. So, you know, to see what we did to them over there and see what Soros and his crowd gets away here, it just drives me insane, because we used lethal kinetic force against the enemies of the United States for much less than what the Soros clan has done. All right, but let's switch topics. All right, and I want to get to my resident expert on the Carmelo Anthony trial, and that is Southern, who did a lot of work with Sarah Fields on that. You know, a few weeks ago we covered the whole trial and what went down on that, and there was a recent to-do on that. And so, Southern, could you give us an update on Carmelo Anthony and give us kind of a quick reset on what happened as well, the who, what, where, when, why?
Okay, so what happened originally was Carmelo Anthony was accused of stabbing Austin Metcalf at a Frisco ISD track meet. There was alleged words between the two. When he decided to stab him, of course, he ran away. Austin died. So then he was charged with murder, and then all the activists came out and said self-defense. Well, it can't be self-defense because it happened at a track meet on school grounds. Can't have weapons.
Yep.
So then June 9th of this year, he was finally convicted. He was given 35 years. And then now, this past week, we had a recusal hearing for Judge Roach, and then we automatically went into a request for a retrial. The recusal hearing was granted. Judge Roach was removed, and it was because he gave an interview post-conviction. Considering he was supposed to be the one to do any further appeals, he was then removed because in the future, if anybody else looked at the case, he could be considered biased by a third party. I completely agree with this. Judges should not give post-conviction interviews if they're supposed to sit on appeal. So then we go into Thursday and Friday, which was the request for a retrial. We got into the gentleman's agreement, which basically said that the Austin and Hunter Metcalf backgrounds and Carmelo Anthony backgrounds would not be brought into the courtroom. Both kids did bad. I will say that. I don't agree with what either of them did. Both of them were bad. They're teenagers. Teenagers do stupid stuff. They've admitted to that they were stupid about it. Carmelo Anthony's was a little bit worse. He actually, at 6 years old, had already had to enter a treatment for aggressive behavior. And then on top of that, had moved schools. I'm guessing his sophomore year, they actually moved from Louisiana to Texas because he did not show up in Texas football records until his sophomore year, which anybody can go look these up. I'm not making this up. At that time, that's when there were accusations of him starting to stalk his ex-girlfriends and threaten them. One of the girlfriends actually let the assistant principal know that he had threatened her life with a knife. The assistant principal, as far as we know, did zero actions and could have possibly saved Austin's life. So at the end of all this, the judge the Bill Worski, I don't know if I say his last name right. He's the prosecutor. He eventually started bringing up all the misinformation that was done by the activists and quote unquote influencers. I don't consider them influencers, but I'll give him this. He actually called out Jake Lang by name and King Cass for, as we all know, Jake Lang has been accused he actually said it on video about threatening to shoot Carmelo Anthony in the head.
Yep.
King Cass tried to do his own little filings behind the scenes, which he's not a lawyer, just so you guys know. He's not a lawyer. He did go to law school. He was a lawyer at one point. He's no longer a lawyer anywhere. And, there was movement inside the courtroom when he was mentioning the influencers. He didn't call them all out by name. At the end of all of this, Judge Chitty took Saturday morning to actually kind of go through the information he was given. Apparently, he may have been giving 4 binders of information, and he later released his ruling, which said that he was not going to give a retrial. They have already filed the appeal, and now we're going to go through this, which that'll take months, years. That's not anything that's going to be soon.
Yes, ma'am. All right, Rox, you had something?
I was just going to add that some of the text messages that they found from Carmelo Anthony, where he said he can't wait to stab someone, and when he stabs someone, he's going to lick the blood off a knife. Like, he had like an obsession with it. I honestly think if they would have gave him a retrial, it would have been 10 times worse of a sentencing. And it's almost like a, hey, dude, you're like barking up the wrong tree. But yeah, they're still going to fight it up at the federal level too, I think now.
Well, and again, you know, this is what I'm going to call normal legal process. All right. So they're always going to have a motion for appeal. You know, I had a motion for appeal. You know, this is just normally the way it works. I got a couple of questions for you, Southern. And it does tie into, now to me, it's irrelevant. It's absolutely irrelevant because I've got 2 17-year-olds, one of whom is dead. But there were rumors that Austin Metcalf had uttered racial slurs, said something about the Ku Klux Klan was needed. Is there any truth in that, or is that all lies coming from, you know, the people that the prosecuting attorney called out?
I do not know 100% certain because, of course, he was a minor at the time and all those records are sealed. I can say that it sounds more likely that it did happen and that they were put on probation. Who actually wrote those words? I don't know. There were 3 minors involved in this incident, so I can't say 100% Austin is the one that said those words.
Well, and again,
I think it was also from like when he was in middle school too, like
okay,
when he was a lot younger.
Well, even if it was the day before, I mean, it still doesn't justify him being stabbed.
Even if he had said those words to Carmelo Anthony, to his face, it does not justify murder.
Yes, ma'am.
In my opinion, it justifies a punch to your face, but it just does not justify being stabbed in your heart.
Absolutely. All right, so I've got a couple of places I want to go with this. All right, I've tried to pass Jennifer Lundy Brock a mic several times, and apparently we're having issues. But she runs a group called Texans for Judicial Accountability. And one of the bills that they're trying to get through the legislature this session, and she's been working very hard on this for a long time already, and now she is in the process of socializing the bill with judges, Texas Supreme Court judges, and legislators. Again, because you try and build as much consensus before session starts as well, is to put cameras in the courtroom. Now, in my opinion, Southern, and you tell me if I'm wrong, this is a case where I think cameras would have been of great benefit because the facts, the who, what, where, when, why, which we always strive to give, would have been present to the vast majority of the public if they were so inclined to get them. All right, and we would have had direct testimony that we could post to refute the liars on the left in the social media. So do you think it would have been of benefit to have cameras in the courtroom for this particular trial?
For this case, no. And because of the fact that most of the witnesses were minors or had already become adults and were about to start college, they have already tried to dox them several times. They have already tried to find out what colleges they were going to, started sending letters to random colleges about, hey, if this student comes to your school, just so you know X, Y, and Z.
Okay. No. Fair point.
Anytime that minors are involved, I don't want them to be on camera or like say somebody had said their name instead of witness number 3. Like at that point, then you're already putting their life at risk. So
yes, ma'am.
I want to say case by case.
Well, just so you know, it is in the bill to protect minors' privacy rights. But let's say that they were all adults in this case, which Carmelo was 1 month away, as I understand it, from being tried as an adult. If they were all adults in this case, do you think that cameras would have been of benefit to the public at large? And I will also tell you this, it's not necessarily just the public that I feel that needs to see this. The real value of this to me is as a person who was wrongfully prosecuted, all right, and I feel I had my rights violated, I would really like a video record of judges who usually try and do their best when they do violate the law, when they do misstep what their guidelines are or step out. I think having that on record in video is of such value to me that I really do want cameras in the courtroom. What are your thoughts on that in regards to this?
I still want to keep it case by case because, like this one, like I said, Sarah was threatened several times. She was swatted. They sent CPS to her house. So when it comes to cases like this, I want to keep it case by case because when we have situations where we have these activists that are willing to go to no lengths to dox witnesses and threaten their lives, I want to keep it more so the judge has more power to say, no, I'm not going to release their names because of what you guys do.
Yep.
But it should be videotaped for further review. So like in your case, like yours was a federal case, I think federal should be more televised than it actually is. But in this case, at least have it taped so that in the future, they can go back and redact what they need to and then release it to the public.
Yes, ma'am. Now, what are your thoughts, Dr. A, as a congressional candidate? And then I'll come to you, Roxy, and then we'll move to the next topic.
Well, all I can think of is, the case that we're going to speak on in a few minutes. And so many of these cases are being weaponized and spun out by people on social media and podcasts with partial truths. And then they get people all up in arms. And then the truth doesn't come out until years later. And then it's like, okay, that was all for nothing. I really believe that we're setting ourselves up for mass chaos and violence if we allow these people to keep creating narratives around these real cases.
I agree. And that's, again, that's why I basically want them to be there. Again, why everything else is transparent. I mean, cops have video cameras on them all the time, and they have to. Almost everybody records every interaction with the police these days. Go ahead, Southern.
Yeah, but even when you're talking about those cases, not every department has to release them. It's up to the department whether or not they want to release them. And even then, they're heavily redacted. We've had ones where we've known exactly what happened, and once we got the videotape, it was so redacted you couldn't actually see what had happened.
Agree. That's why I would like a live stream, because I don't like the government having control on what they can redact. Again, as long as minors are not, I mean, I agree with you, Southern, that minors have to be protected, but I want the public to have complete transparency. You know what? We have to have transparency in our government. We do in Texas. Like every committee meeting is supposed to be video recorded and broadcast live in the Texas legislature. And the reason for that is so that we can have faith that our people are acting above board. Last session, there was a financing group that took their meeting elsewhere to skirt the law. And Brian Harrison rightly called them out for that. So again, it's really galling to me. And I do think that judges should not be able to have their little fiefs where they are the absolute Lord and master with zero accountability. And that is the whole purpose for it, is to make sure that these rogue judges, and again, very low number, I really do believe that, even having had one, are that way, but to make sure that they are protected and that the public interest is served so that we have a representative republic with a fair and equal justice system. Go ahead, Southern.
I just want to point out, like, one of these students they were able to dox was because his initials were left on a police report. Unreal. Not his full name. Yep. They just got it based just off the initials. So, I mean, if we were to take those tapes, say, like, it's not available to the public immediately. We take those tapes, you change their voices when they're actually testifying, but you still hear their exact words. I don't have a problem with that. But I think when we have cases like this where you have people that want to go after everyone involved, I want to start trying to protect them, because their lives don't need to be ruined forever because of somebody having harsh feelings because of the color of somebody's skin.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Rox.
I'm actually leaning towards Southern on this because everything is a double-edged sword when it comes to this. Remember, the punishment is almost in the process. And you can be violating someone's constitutional rights because you're going to get trashed, and people have short attention spans. They only pay attention to one segment, and then they run off that one segment instead of listening to the entire story all the time. This is just common human behavior, And like they're like, I saw this one part, and it's where the defense or the prosecution is going after and trashing you, but you don't hear the facts or it doesn't come out because you only had 10 minutes whenever you had to go take care of your kids, right? So I am leaning towards Southern on this. Now I do think there also, how she said, there should be like, yes, a recording for accountability purposes, but not to the public, because the public as a whole, I'm sorry, half the time y'all go retarded, and unfortunately that again is just human behavior because of short attention spans, or life is going on. I just happen to be at home almost all the time. But at the same time, I still miss things too. So if I'm missing things, there's definitely people all around as a whole missing things. And then they make up an entire narrative that the husband did it with the Clancy thing. Come on.
We're getting there, and that would be a great lead-in, but I am going to save that to end the show. Southern, I'll give you the last word, ma'am, and then we got to move on.
I just want to point out one other thing they did about this case was Sarah had even had an interaction with a police officer and had reported on it. They went as far as to get the footage of her talking to the officer, and all it proved it was a one-on-one conversation, but there were other people around. So it's not like she was pulled to the side and had this grand conversation alone with him that wasn't available to anybody else. Like, that's how crazy they've gotten with this case.
Absolutely. I saw a video of them leaving after Judge Roach was recused. And when I say them, I mean the agitators around this case. And it was revolting. But anyway, all right. Thank you, Southern, for the report there. I think this is going to continue. But like you said, it's going to be a several-month break before the appeal is actually heard. And I'm telling you right now, zero chance. Judge Roach is a no-nonsense judge. He is one of them that I don't believe he's ever had a case overturned. I really don't. And again, how do I know this? Personally, I was in his court for a divorce. So again, that's why I know that one. All right. Our little friendly Chihuahua up north, roof, 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 is once again barking at our ankles. All right. I can't stand him. Now, there's a phrase going around Canada right now that they want to have their elbows up, and it stems from their love of Gordie Howe, a hockey player. Hey, I got a question for you, Canada. Who has the Olympic gold right now amongst the women? Blink, blink, blink. I believe it's Uncle Sugar. What about the men? Surely you won the men's hockey gold medal, right? Oh, no, that would be us. Your big brother down south, the ones that protect you and have pretty much since inception, while you badmouth us. Canada drives me nuts. Anyway, so Canadian Prime Minister and WEF globalist Mark Carney has been an absolute and complete disaster since he entered office. All right. There were many critics who believed that the Trudeau regime, Trudeau and his blackface, could not be topped in terms of self-destructive behavior. But to that, Carney just said, hold my Molson, which, by the way, is a great beer. I do give them credit for that. Now, this week, the Canadian government abandoned a nearly finalized trade deal with the United States in the final hours of talks, leaving many analysts and Canadians bewildered. Now, our press, being the traitors and communists that they are glorifying Carney and Canada standing up to Orange Man bad. Just standing up to Orange Man bad. And so I thought I would go through what was actually in this trade deal. All right. This is what U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer and related reports on the negotiations had to say. Our offer gave Canada preferential treatment relative to other major exporters. We offered significant tariff reductions. An example, a reduction on tariffs on steel from 50% to 25%, a reduction on Canadian auto tariffs from 25 to 15%, a removal of the 10% tariff on Canadian lumber, and cooperation on numerous other measures, representing the best deal offered in comparison to any other country which relies heavily on U.S. markets. Let me say that again. They were getting the best deal of any other country. Now, Carney, probably domestically, politically, I'm going to get my elbows up. Anyway, Carney, as a result of his actions, has now seen his country slapped with 50% tariffs on a majority of Canadian goods. This is economic suicide for Canada, given their deep dependence on the United States. What Carney's not telling his citizens is there are no practical alternatives to fill the trade void. Now, he is lying to them, and saying that he can get others. So let's look at those numbers. Around 78% of all Canadian exports rely on the U.S. consumer markets. These goods and resources make up only around 13% of U.S. imports, meaning we can go elsewhere easily. Around 15% of U.S. exports go to Canada. So when they put the tariffs on them, all right, that means that our exports only make up 11% of our total GDP. Other countries can absorb that. In Canada, their exports make up 33% of their GDP. So by any and every metric, Canada needs the United States more than the United States needs Canada. It's basic economic reality. Without these exports, Canada will suffer severe instability within a few years. Now, that timeline's important. So why would he do it? He wants to keep the economy depressed here at least through November. He does not want to see Trump remain in power with a Republican Congress. He wants to see Trump hamstrung with a communist Congress. Remember who Carney is. He is a Klaus Schwab globalist, a former WEF banker. Okay, he is now insinuating that the United States was threatening Canada's sovereignty, culture, and languages. Now, the hypocrisy of a WEF globalist pontificating about national culture and sovereignty is just honestly stomach churning. But these declarations are strategic for him because he's been pursuing trade deals with the EU and China in an attempt to replace U.S. markets. Good luck, Trigger. 78%. All right. He also wants to save Canadian exports by getting in bed with China. Now, here's what he's not telling them again. China regularly enforces huge tariffs on Canadian goods, while shipping goods overseas to Europe and Asia will also add price hikes to Canadian goods. All right, that would not be an issue if they traded with the United States. So they're going to sell less overseas. And we all know Chinese trade deals come with strings attached. China is seeking economic and resource expansion into Canada, which we will never allow, which is ruffling feathers among Canadian companies and citizens. So in this flirtation with China, Canada forgets a staggering fact. All right. We have twice as many licensed hunters in Texas as they have total servicemen. We have 4 times the number of active duty servicemen than they have. Look, we should just take what we want, which is Alberta, British Columbia, and Saskatchewan from them, and tell them to be happy we're only taking half. Now, we're going to have to rename British Columbia to American Columbia. I think that's rational. And Vancouver needs a fresh new name as well. Might I suggest Trumpland? Seriously, though, I got to ask, what's in it for Carney? This doesn't make sense to me. If his goal is to cripple the Canadian economy, he is going to succeed. And he will make Canada a pawn being waged in the war between the Davos elite and the conservative movements in the United States. The majority of anti-globalist and anti-multicultural movements around the world are funded by who? Us. And so when we act to defeat their progressive agenda, they have to act to defeat us. That's his goal. He could care less about his citizens. So being a South Park aficionado, anytime I think of Canada, I can't help but think of them with their hockey sticks and their little beady eyes. And I've got to ask, when will the first shot be fired to stop the global elites and the Canadians? I mean, as South Park says in the song, which I posted the link to, Canada isn't even a real country anyway. All right. We covered that quite a bit. I'm going to come to you, Dr. A. Can you think of any reason he's doing this? Any logical reason?
No, sir. But as an American who knows Canadians very well, I disavow the accepting of Vancouver and British Columbia for equals with voting rights.
Right?
Albertans, right there, baby. I got you. They're good. They're cool. They're
Yep.
smart. They think. I'm not going with the rest of them. They're worse than California, sir.
Well,
She read
Saskatchewan.
my mind. I was about to say that. I was like, I don't want them.
Yeah,
Why
but
are you
Saskatchewan.
advocating
Okay,
for-
come on, time out. I'll tell you why I want them. Now, Saskatchewan, they've got oil. I kind of like oil. We need a lot of it. And the more of it we have, the better off we are. So I want Alberta and Saskatchewan. And I need British Columbia because if you've ever driven through it, it is the second most beautiful place on the earth that I've actually seen, with Bavaria in the summer being the number one on the list. But I'm telling you, Vancouver is incredible. I'm sorry, not Vancouver, but British Columbia. Now, Vancouver, it's like a more libtarded Seattle. So I'm right there with you on that one, Dr. A. But, you know, give us a couple of generations. And when we take over and they see the Stars and Strap flying, they're going to flee to the east anyway. And, you know, enough with you talking about your French culture. Like, that's a good thing. What? Okay, so you can drop your rifle and march backwards? You can surrender at the drop of a hat? French culture. Pooey. I eat freedom fries, not French fries. Go ahead, Rox.
But red poutine is good, sir.
Like
And
I
they
said,
can be a U.S. territory, not a state. That's what I was going to add. Because, yeah, I like no voting rights. Because, no. U.S.
All right.
territory only.
the Albertans and the Saskatchewanians, I think, would be more along the line of the Midwest. I don't think they're hard right. I don't think they're hard left either. All right, let's go, though, to the next topic. We're about a minute late. I asked Dr. A to talk to me and give me the facts on this Lindsay Clancy story because I'm hearing things from the left and the right. I don't know what to believe. So Dr. A, what do you think about all of this? And tell us, first of all, what happened, and then please entertain a couple of questions from me on this.
Yeah, I'll start with a little bit of background because I think there's a lot of misinformation circling around.
Yes, ma'am.
So Lindsay Clancy's trial in Plymouth Superior Court, Massachusetts, is in its final stages. The defense rested its case last Friday. Prosecutors then began their rebuttal case, and testimony is continuing today, with closing arguments expected tomorrow. Then the case goes to the jury. So Lindsay Clancy faces 3 counts of first-degree murder in the January 24th, 2023 deaths of her children. Now, please understand, guys, I thought this was something recent because it's the first time I've been hearing about it, or if the media covered it in 2020, I don't remember it. So people are like, oh, but it happened over 3 years ago, okay? The deaths of her children, Cora 5, Dawson 3, and Callan, who was at the time about 8 months old, in the family's Duxbury home. Separate strangulation charges were dropped before trial as redundant. She pled not guilty. Her defense is a lack of criminal responsibility, insanity, based on severe mental illness, primary postpartum psychosis. Primary postpartum psychosis, possibly with bipolar features, worsened by medications. Prosecutors argue she acted with deliberate premeditation and appreciated the wrongfulness of her actions. So Clancy herself is a former labor and delivery nurse, had postpartum anxiety after her first 2 children. Symptoms then intensified after Callan's, the 3rd baby's birth, in 2022 as she prepared to return to work. She experienced insomnia, anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, intrusive thoughts, including of harming the children, which she disclosed to family, and later described command auditory hallucinations, a male voice telling her to kill the children so she could kill herself. The family hired a part-time nanny from early September until December, about 3 months. She was hired to care for infant Callan once Lindsay planned to return to her labor and delivery nursing job around Thanksgiving. And she also helped with some light housekeeping and occasionally with the older children. This individual worked about 3 days a week, typically mornings into early afternoon. Lindsay shared with her that she was struggling with postpartum issues and sleep problems, sometimes sleeping in the basement. And Rossi saw medication bottles, but she testified that she observed a wonderful mom who loved her kids, had no concerns about the children's safety, and described detailed, appropriate instructions about Callan's feeding and sleep. The family let her go, the help, in early December after Lindsay decided not to return to work. Both parents would handle childcare. The husband worked from home, by the way.
Okay.
Lindsay sought help repeatedly. Outpatient providers, a psychiatrist. Initially, she was diagnosed with generalized anxiety and was prescribed Zoloft. Emergency room visits, calls to a suicide crisis hotline at least twice, attempts at a day program for postpartum issues, and a voluntary 5-day inpatient stay at McLean Hospital in early January 2023, diagnosed there with major depressive disorder, severe, without psychotic features. She was discharged from that facility about 19 days before the killings. Family members and others testified that she appeared to be declining and that medications were not helping. Defense experts, including forensic psychologists, psychiatrists who evaluated her extensively after the fact, diagnosed bipolar disorder with postpartum psychosis and testified that she lacked substantial capacity to appreciate the wrongfulness of her conduct or conform her behavior to the law due to mental illness. They pointed to command hallucinations and her overall presentation. Prosecution experts and rebuttal witnesses have challenged the psychosis diagnosis or its timing or impact, noting, among other things, that she did not report hearing voices to treating providers before the killings, that some post-event evaluations describe her as calm, cooperative, with organized thinking, and that statements like, "go to God," or similar during the acts could indicate awareness of wrongfulness. Phone and search history showed queries about hallucinations, psychosis, drug side effects, suicide methods, bipolar disorder, and postpartum depression in the preceding weeks. The issues center around prescribing psychiatric medications. Accounts describe a complex, changing regimen of more than a dozen drugs over the months before the killings. Example cited reports include Zoloft or sertraline, Prozac, Klonopin, Ambien, Ativan, Trazodone, Seroquel, Valium, Remeron or mirtazapine, and others. The defense argues she was over-medicated or improperly medicated, particularly with antidepressants that can destabilize bipolar illness, leading to worsened symptoms, disassociation, intrusive, homicidal, suicidal ideation, and ultimately psychosis. Toxicology after the event reportedly showed prescribed substances, benzodiazepines, but not alcohol or THC. Both Lindsay Clancy and her husband, Patrick, have filed civil malpractice wrongful death suits against certain providers, alleging inadequate care and monitoring contributed to the tragedy. The core legal question for the jury is criminal responsibility under Massachusetts standards, whether due to mental disease or defects she lacked substantial capacity to appreciate the criminal wrongfulness of her conduct or to conform her conduct to the requirements of the law. If found not criminally responsible, she would be committed to a secure psychiatric facility with periodic reviews rather than sentenced to prison. The trial has features extensive expert testimony on both sides, emotional family testimony, including from Patrick, the husband, and Clancy's mother and sister, crime scene and medical evidence, and debates over the adequacy of her prior mental health care. So, some quick definitions. Postpartum depression, or PPD, occurs in, they say, 10 to 15% of the women. I would actually think it's higher, but maybe it's not all reported. It's not only related to normal changes in hormone levels, it is also a response to vitamin levels. Essentially, guys, the baby takes everything it needs from the mom and often leaves her depleted. Vitamin deficiencies that can contribute to postpartum depression includes vitamins B12, folate, and thyroid hormone insufficiencies. And then there's postpartum psychoses. PPP, which is different than PPD. It's a severe form of psychiatric illness that occurs in 0.1 to 0.2% of women after delivery. Symptoms may include hallucinations, delusions, insomnia, severe anxiety, and suicidal or homicidal ideation. Women with a history of bipolar disorder or schizophrenia are at increased risk of developing postpartum psychoses. On top of this, Lindsay Clancy did have a history of numerous medications, several of which in and of themselves have suicidal ideation or suicidal behavior specifically identified in their FDA-approved labeling. That doesn't mean she should be forgiven for her behavior, in my humble opinion, but it's conceivable that her doctors and her pharmacists should be tried also. Or, her husband did leave her alone with the children unsupervised only 19 days after she left a psychiatric facility where they said she's not getting better. But these pink protests that are occurring during the trial, 3+ years after the death, again, I don't even remember hearing about it before now. They seem inorganic. They seem contrived, and many people seem to be picking up a small version of the truth and then blowing it up. They're saying that the father is 100% responsible, that he was setting her up and that he was having an affair, blah, 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 all these things. He didn't remarry because that's part of it. They're saying he remarried quickly. He didn't remarry until more than 3 years after his ex-wife killed their children. I would have divorced her on that basis alone. If I were a man and she killed my children, I'm done with that. Anyway, as a MAHA moment, I felt I needed to say FDA and pharmaceuticals are setting women up for postpartum depression and their children for brain inflammation through the use of folic acid supplements during pregnancy, fortified into baby formula, and many foods on the shelf. Folic acid blocks folate from getting to the mother and to the baby, and that's a huge, huge problem in this instance and more. Public responses for this trial are likely to cause copycat murders of children for attention. When women are depressed, they are sad. Many of them want attention because the dopamine helps bring them out of the depression. This is the most sick way of our society helping women try to deal with a problem that, I don't know, our government could be helping solve. I'll leave it there.
Thank you for a very thorough who, what, where, when, why. Rox, go ahead, ma'am.
Oh, I was just going to say, I agree completely with Dr. Angela, and I think we kind of discussed this earlier. As someone who's been having a certain pregnancy hormone surging through my system at, oh my God, levels for the past 3 years, and in the past I have been suicidal very, very long time ago, crawled out of that. I always tell people, do not let them put you on more than one medication at a time if you decide to. And I was a victim's advocate for other rape victims as well. And I've seen people just fall apart because they give them 2 anxieties and an antidepressant on top of it. And I'm like, just try one thing at a time if you have to. You don't know how these things interact. Every single person's different. Every people who have these problems with their mind, like, handle things different. Your intelligence levels, your experiences in life, all of that stuff matters. And you want to throw a concoction of a pharmaceutical soup on here? No. Again, some things can be useful if taken responsibly. And I agree with Dr. A that throwing the entire kitchen sink at this poor lady, I'm not saying poor because she murdered her kids. I think she should pay for that, by the way. I'm just saying she was asking and begging for help at the same time. And the system, I do think, failed her. Now, all these people making up theories on TikTok, one of the theories Dr. A mentioned that the husband actually killed the kids. But no, there's actual cell phone tracking pings of where she was, even in the house and when she was walking up. And there's actual camera footage, by the way, of her husband at that location he went off to go pick up a prescription for her. Okay, he wasn't in the house to kill the kids. But that theory's all over TikTok apparently, and just that's mind blowing. Now again, if I feel bad because the woman was asking for help, but I also think that the husband and even the mother-in-law who she told she was thinking about harming the children should be held in a different way, maybe not criminally responsible, but how could you not do something? How could you leave those kids alone with her? Like you said, Dr. A, just a couple weeks after she got out of the mental hospital that she checked her own self into, seeking help. the suicide hotline wouldn't help her because she did not have a quote-unquote plan to commit suicide. So they said that she was not to get more treatment on that level, which I thought was wild in my mind. I'm like, are you kidding me? What are you there for? Like, I've been in these places before. Like, this is a hotline is not supposed to leave. Oh, you don't have a plan? You're fine. That sounds insane. We need more training there.
That's the difference between their definition of suicidal ideation versus, yeah, if you don't have a plan, they don't consider you truly suicidal. It's sad.
That is so nuts to me. And by the way, even if I had a psychotic break and killed my own kids, I don't care if it was 1 or 10. Okay, I'd be like, put me in the ground or put me in jail for the rest of my life. I do not care. She is paralyzed because she jumped out that second-story window. Like, she's not going to do well. And by the way, she's going to get put away at a mental institute for the rest of her life, hopefully, or the jail, whichever one. Now, I did say maybe years down the line, if that mental institute says that she's cured all of a sudden, I don't think that should be allowed. I don't know how to fix that, but either way, she's not going to be walking free on the streets. But again, if I killed my kids, psychotic break or not, I'd be like, no, end it. I don't care. Or put me in jail. I'm going to serve there or whatever, but I'm not a good human, break or not. I do feel bad that the system failed her. And like Dr. A was also saying, there's so much chemicals and terrible things, and we're not getting what we need. Been there, done that, and I know how it feels in a way, not like to that level. I don't have voices talking in my head, but like, I'd be like, oh my God, somebody said something to my head. Now the doctors do say that they didn't put it in their notes. And she doesn't, a lot of times that people don't mention that kind of stuff because they don't want their kids to get taken. I do understand that aspect of it too, because there's a lot of times people don't say something. But at the same time, come on. She said something to a lot of people. You guys should have never. Those kids should have been placed in a safer place away from her until she got better and wasn't begging for help. Like, there's so many system failures on this, and it just blows my mind. I can't believe it. Those poor kids should have been growing up. 3 beautiful children in this world, and they're not. So,
yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Southern.
Oh, it's okay. I was just going to point out real quick. So the newest series is that was not the husband picking those up those prescriptions. It was the best friend, because for some reason they look alike. And she didn't do it. The new wife did it because they look too similar.
Oh my God.
Good grief. I mean, people are insane. All right, I got a couple of questions. All right, so I've long said that there's a just basic human goodness, all right? And I believe that there's good in the world and evil in the world without Satan and God. But, you know, for a man to be a coward is a basic evil trait. For a woman to hurt her children is a basic evil trait. But I'm going to ask a hard question on this one. This, as I understand it, Dr. A., this wife had told her husband, I'm feeling violent towards these children, and he left her alone with them, correct? Now, granted, going to get her prescription, but he still left her alone with them. Is that accurate?
Yes.
I don't understand that. But he's not being tried in any way for neglect, criminal neglect of some type?
No, not at all.
Okay, I'm telling you right now, as a man, I find that reprehensible that our justice system is letting him get away with that. If his wife told him, I need help, and he let her down, and then he allowed his children to be hurt because of his failure, let me be very clear. He is responsible for allowing her to be alone and setting the conditions up for her to do this. She did the crime. And I read a book, and it's a Christian book called Piercing this Darkness. And in this book, there was a demonic voice that told a woman to murder her child. And so it's quite honestly chilling to me to hear that described in real life. All right. And I just telling you, I feel like as a man, he let us down as men, and he failed, and he should pay a price for this as well. Now, the doctors and the clinicians, again, you know, as an airline pilot, if something happens and the plane crashes, as long as I did everything right and by the book, I'm okay. If I violated the rules, say I was drunk, say I did something reckless, they are going to prosecute me. My question is, Dr. A, is there something like that for the doctors? Because to me, I get misdiagnosis. I mean, the human mind it's a mystery, and it has been for all time. But is there a way of knowing whether or not, in other words, did they fail because they just didn't see it, or did they fail out of criminal neglect? Do we know that?
I guess that would depend on your definition of criminal neglect. Trying medications on a human body without knowing the side effects that they are going to cause, knowing the severity of potential side effects, in my humble opinion, is neglectful. It is neglectful. I have watched people suffer through these medications. I have watched women claw themselves to be able to get off of them. It is pharmaceuticals in this manner are criminal. The fact that they put her on numerous at once, didn't have any one person looking at her record to see what she's on, how they could be cross-reacting, and what nutrient deficiencies these specific medications cause. They contributed to it, sir.
I mean, I've got to be honest with you. Again, I feel like that we're just all a vast experiment for big pharma. I'm grossed out by it. Again,
just defined the last 30 years of my career, sir.
I hold the father accountable. All right. As a man, I am the head of my family according to my religion, and I am responsible for the safe conduct of my wife and my children. And God will hold him accountable for that if the law does not now. That is the one mercy that I do take out of this. Go ahead, Rox. I'll let you wrap up.
I was just going to say, and maybe get Dr. Angela's thoughts on this.
Okay.
Miss Julie in the comments said that she also got the COVID Moderna shot shortly before the murders as well. I do wonder if that contributed something into like the whole psychotic break of the mind, because it did a lot of things, a lot of neurological, cardiovascular, and up to people. Mine was neurological and cardiovascular a little bit, but more neurological.
Yeah, we know that she was herself a labor and delivery nurse, so she was probably required to get it as part of her job if she kept her job, which we know she did because she tried to go back.
She was about to go back, right?
She was about to go back, yep.
Right before
well, and guys, that was 2022, so she'd probably already endured getting a shot even in 2021 because she was still working before she left for maternity leave for the third child. So another clinical concoction that could interact with her medications would cause more nutrient deficiencies. Absolutely. I saw it in patients. So who's to say which one pushed her over the edge? But yeah, she clearly
the whole
was.
Pharmaceutical soup they gave to her, that's insanity to me.
Yes, ma'am. You're absolutely right. And I think, you hit the nail on the head there, one at a time, and try and get off of them as quick as you can. I am going to, I had quotes based off the Carmelo thing, and I'm going to read them. But I want to tell you something that's been in my mind right now is thug culture, all right, responsible for the death of Austin Metcalf? And I think a little bit of it is, all right. And I am not, even though it is primarily associated with one race, I am not trying to be that way. I'm trying to say that the sense of entitlement, the sense that you can hurt someone and get away with it, the glorification of violence in our society is causing these problems. So I thought I'd wrap up with a few quotes along those lines. For thugs from the ghetto, violence is a way of life. It's what helps you survive. From Suge Knight. All right. From Tony Snow, we can't afford blindness anymore. There are tens of thousands of thugs who loathe liberty and love death and want to annihilate Western civilization. All right. From another guy named Rick Fumiyiwa. All right. So many kids that we label as thugs and criminals are often those same kids that end up in circumstances that are out of their control. And I think that's what happened to Carmelo. I think we tolerated thuggish and criminal behavior, and it led to circumstances out of his control. And now he's spending 35 years in prison and there is a young man that's dead. Anyway, I get it. I understand that this is a very hard topic to talk about, especially as a white guy. But I think we need to start taking a hard look at it. We cannot turn a blind eye to what Islam is doing, to what the left is doing, and not talk about this as well. So maybe that's a topic for another time. But I want to thank all of you for joining us. God bless each and every one of you. Have a wonderful week. Hug your family, hug your children, and thank God that they're